Uh, Let me cue up Emily's session here, and thanks again, everybody, for joining the Voice event.
Hi, my name is Emily, and today I am going to show you guys how to get started with voice. More importantly, how you can get started ideally using a platform like Voiceflow. So thank you so much, Data Driven Design and the Voice event, Paul especially, for having us today. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, as I mentioned, my name is Emily, and I am the head of growth at Voiceflow. And essentially what I try to do is connect with a ton of different businesses, people in the community, and try to see how we can build a better product so that you can get more out of voice and what it can potentially do for your business. Voiceflow, for those of you who haven't had a chance to play around with, is a super easy way for you to collaboratively design, prototype, and develop voice apps with little to no code. It's also a really great spot to get started if it's something that you're unsure of the ROI, you're unsure of potentially what a proof of concept would look like, and it's a great place to even get some community help. I know Paul and a bunch of people that also attended this event today are all part of the Voiceflow community and are always eager to share or to help out anybody who's new at voice. And more importantly, for those who are super inspired after today in thinking about what is possible with Lex and Google, we are a platform that makes it really easy for you to publish to both of those platforms so that you can take your proof of concept from Voiceflow directly into your platform on the same day, so that you can focus a little bit more on what these end experiences look like and a little bit less on the nuances of the code or trying to figure out how you can dedicate more resources. So for today, I really want to walk through a couple different ways that we can start to think about voice. And in today's workshop, we're going to break that down into a few different things. You're going to learn the basics of speak and choice blocks, as well as how to manage and create choice variables, and also be able to pull from different data sources. And in the end as well, because this is only a short little introduction, I'm going to give you access to way more ways that you can get tutorials, more advanced integrations, and what's bots versus voice? How can I take something that I've done in a bot, apply it into voice? And there's a lot of parallels, but there's also a lot of differences in how we're building. Where historically with bots, you're confined in many ways to what buttons that you have, what's the confines in that text box. With voice, it's really more about the user. What feels natural? How do they speak? How do you succinctly converse with them or write dialogue that seems natural, conversational? Because it's a lot easier to absorb a lot more information in written form, but it's a lot easier to command or receive information via voice. In bots, in a lot of cases, or even in some beginning voice experiences, you have to think about also what type of experience you want to build. Is it linear or is it dynamic? Do you choose one path or another, or is it contextual? Are you able to jump back and forth based on what situation someone's in? If they are going through the proper path and need help, can they divert and then come back, as an example? And it all starts with invocation, so what somebody says to actually wake that skill, so Alexa, open blank, is followed by a speak and choice block, which starts to kind of bring people into what that conversation starts to look like. And this is kind of what it looks like when you first open up Voiceflow. So you'll see over here, there's a home block, which has the invocation name, and this is the central point for every project, quickly followed by whatever project name you'd like and whatever region. So this will make it accessible for whatever language that you're building for. And very quickly following that, whatever speak blocks you would like. So the invocation name itself opens the skill, but what is the first greeting, the welcome message that comes afterwards? So when we refer to speak blocks, that is whatever the assistant, in this case Alexa, says to the user. So example, a welcome message, perhaps a prompt or question. And you can activate that just by dragging over the speak block, which is on the left side of the screen. And you can see on the right side over here, I quickly wrote in something that says, hey, and then it has a variable for first name if they know that already. Welcome to the Voiceflow workshop at the Voice event. And this is what the system will say. and it is currently using the default voice for Alexa, but there's a ton of different choices that you can use here, as well as different effects. Here you can also even upload different audio. So you can do audio, you can do follow-up messages. This is a really great way if you want to use ear cons or different skills. So like, let's say typing, if there's a response and you need to look up something, just that the conversation experience itself feels a little bit more natural. The next block that you're going to need to understand is the choice block, which lets you set what answers or slots your voice app recognizes. So for instance, if we set up a prompt or a question that asks what color is the sky, the choices that we might be looking for or that we support are blue and maybe a variable synonym of sky blue. So maybe we set red, blue, and yellow as an example, and then we have an array of different ways that someone could potentially say those colors so that they could recognize that. The most common choice that you probably want to make sure that you understand is the yes and no. And we have a ton of different automatic choices that are preset in there from both Alexa, Google, and third-party libraries that also come jam-packed with all of a bunch of preset synonyms. You don't have to type that a bunch. And this is definitely a really good one to get to know as you play around with your own prototyping experience. And last but not least, the other thing to note when you're in choices is the, let's say, preset and all the answers that you would ideally like someone to say. So in this case, yes or no, but also the else. So this is what happens if someone says something that isn't registered by any of the choices that you have there. Consider it an outlier or how you handle curveballs. We do in Voiceflow have a way where you automatically can set a reprompt, and that is basically a way for it to re-ask how they can get back onto the question itself. So let's say if I asked a question of, would you like a coffee with that? And someone says, maybe. And I don't have yes or, and that doesn't fall into yes or no. My reprompt would then activate, which could say, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Would you like a coffee, yes or no? And that's a really good example of kind of bringing back the user to the choices that you've set, so then that way you have an experience that fits with what they're looking for. And the last thing that you have to think about when you're building these experiences is that they don't exist separately. They exist in tandem. So when you set up both speak blocks and choice blocks, you're going to begin to create what we call a flow. And those flows is the path that your voice application will follow, and also the best way that your user will navigate from different areas within your app itself. And very simple apps will follow this almost exactly. However, there are tons of different ways that, as I mentioned earlier with contextual design, that people can jump back and forth or in and out of different individual flows based on what context that they have and resume their previous position in that flow. So there's a lot of ways that you can create your ideal path, but also handle a bunch of different arrays of complexity as well. And creating that flow is just as simple as dragging from one block to another. So let's get started. If you head over to the link on the screen, which is just vflow.link/voice event, there you'll have access to a page which will have a download link for this project exactly if you want to follow along as we're doing it. If not, this link will remain live, so you're able to go back in and play around with it at any point. But this will be a great way if you want to build off the project that I'm going to be live building right now. Otherwise, feel free to take some time to play around with the speak and choice blocks as we go along with the workshop. And really, as you're going through, I want you to think this question, because this is something that you're going to have to think about a lot as a business owner or as a creator, is your V1 in everything that you do is always going to be questioned by how could this get a little bit better? And that's exactly what we want to get into the cadence of doing as we're building out the structure. Is first you want to build the skeleton. So what is the overall flow of your voice app? Next is how can we make this a better experience overall? And in a lot of cases, you'll notice it's variables. In this case, we're going to be using a database. So then these variables are going to be a really good example of how we can very dynamically update what content our user engages in our voice app. But variables are also a really great way of recalling information. So let's say if a user tells you your name or their name and you want to recall that, or if there's user authentication, these are all ways that you might want to cache those things and reuse them in your experience later so it feels more personal. So with that, let's dive into the project. Today, we're going to be building a joke generator. So basically what this does is it's created a really easy way where this app can dynamically pull from a data source. In this case, we've linked it here, and it's just a quick little API document for dad jokes. However, you can plug that into virtually anything that has a data source and an API. And what this does is we've created one flow that a user can go through, and as we can see over here, it has the invocation name. So Alexa, open dad jokes. It checks if it is the first time that a user is coming onto this platform. If it is, it will ask for their first name and capture that and register that as a variable, and reply with nice to meet you name. If it is a returning user, it will say welcome back, and it's those little touches that make for a slightly better experience, especially for return users. Then it pushes people into this next intent, which basically will grab a joke from the APIs, as you can see over here with the send get request. It will reply with that joke as a variable, which we've set already, and then prompt the user if they would like another joke, of which we already have it set if they're looking for either yes or no, or there are a few different ways that we can set up some reprompts here if the user fails to say either one of those. And we'll go through all of those examples in the prototype coming up. So if someone says yes, they'll continuously get put back through into the intent over here. That will continuously prompt them if they want another joke or another joke after that. And if they say no, it will put them into our exit flow, which will say goodbye or end that skill. And this is a really simple way that you can create one skill that will dynamically update, which is really good if you would like to keep your content management in a way that it's a little bit easier for you or your team to update. And that's typically why we go about suggesting building skills like this. So with that, I'm going to show you a quick little prototype of this. So if you go into it, we have up in the top design, prototype, and build functions. The design tab is where we are and where we spend most of our time dragging and dropping and creating what the system will say and what the responses are looking for. And the prototyping tab is where we do a bunch of our testing. It's also a great way for you to do error testing, for you to figure out what are some of the quips or some of the things that you might want to change without having to upload it directly to the platform, which you can do so over here. And then we also have the build tab. And here is where you will put in all of the finalized content that you would like when you actually want to press that button and publish that live for testing on the interaction model on Alexa, or directly when you want to add it to the Google Actions console. And so here we already have everything preset, so you'll have all the things from your description to whatever invocation names you would like, locale, so where it's available, and we do have some automated privacy and terms and compliance if that is something that you will need. So now that we're in the prototyping, what we're going to do is we're going to start that test.
Welcome
so
Zero.
What it's doing is it's diving directly into what's over here, and is slowly bringing us from the different areas in our flow. So the way that our flows work, as you can kind of see over here, is they go and they follow each one of the arrows that we have set, unless they are an intent. So like these ones, and this is something that can be called upon at any point when somebody is experiencing what you've built. And when someone hits a block that has multiple things in succession, as you can see here, as well as in the joke section as well, it will play them in order from top to bottom. So it's just prompted, would you like another joke? I can either hold spacebar for voice or I can type it here. So in this case, I am going to say yes.
Here comes a dad joke.
And now it jumped to the intent where this is where a user will spend most of their time if they would like to hear multiple jokes. So I'm going to say that one more time, but slightly different. So I'm going to say yeah.
Here comes a dad joke. I used to be addicted to soap, but I'm clean now. Would you like another joke?
And if you can see over here, I said a different variation of yeah or yes. And because that we've set it up where, like I showed in the presentation before this, that you can set your choices to take a bunch of different synonyms, those still fall and register as the same thing. So in this case, I'm going to say no, this time with the spacebar. No.
Yeah, I didn't like that one either. Fine for now.
And so now I've ended that skill in the current state. So as you can see here, there's a lot of different ways that you can follow kind of where your flow looks like, where it's broken a little bit, and you can go back and you can fix it. In this, you may have noticed that at the beginning it says welcome back 0. So over here, it went and registered 0 as a name. So I'll have to go back and I will fix that. However, a lot of the things that happen in this as well, and this is something that we always tell people when we want to make sure absolutely as to whether or not something is being captured, is it's always good to go and click upload to Alexa or upload to the console itself to get the absolute most on par prototyping experience. Thank you so much. So that's just the basics of how you get started using Voiceflow and how you get started playing around with some of the capabilities within the product.